All right. It is Wednesday. It is 4:30 p.m. Central Time. Welcome everyone to office hours here on the Academy. I'm Johan, Andrew's Andrew. This is where you get your fair share of updates from the last week and where you have the opportunity to ask us questions on pretty much anything related to MDT, ConfigMgr, Intune, Windows, PowerShell, Graph,
everything in between.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So rumors are that you have been building up a list of updates.
How did you know?
The main reason is you told me about it.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just your sharp intuition.
And that also, yes, of course.
So yes, I do. First of all, hello everybody. Happy Wednesday. I don't know about the rest of you. We were talking a little bit before this. You hear me say this often, but I'm so happy it's Wednesday. It's the end of the workday on Wednesday. Well, part of the workday is over for us. We have a user group presentation that we have tomorrow. So I'm happy it's Wednesday. I'm also happy that we have a ton of news in the community. So the first thing that I wanted to show today, there has been an onslaught of content about the new Autopilot profile that's come out. We talked about it a little bit last week. There's a ton of great content out there. Unfortunately, we can only pick a few things. So there are a few articles and YouTube videos that we wanted to share from the community around Autopilot device preparation. Is what it's being called, or as you'll see in some of the titles, it's still Autopilot V2 or device preparation, or it's just a new profile, or anyways, it's something new in Autopilot, to borrow from Dean. So a couple of articles first. Rudy Ohms, who has been sort of teasing Autopilot device preparation for a little while now, wrote a couple of fantastic blog posts in typical Rudy fashion, deep dives, great content here, some great graphics to describe how the entire flow works. Overall, just fantastic stuff as usual. So he's got two different posts here. The first one basically talking about the differences between Autopilot as we've known it for several years now and Autopilot device preparation, or Autopilot V2. There is a second post that he wrote here that really goes in. Let me find his flows here. Here we go. Does a nice job of visualizing what the flows of this new profile look like. Definitely consider reading these posts. It's really great content, deep dive type stuff. Rudy will also help you walk through this and get everything configured. Now, there are a couple of YouTube videos I've watched as well. Our friend Dean Ellerby put together one here called Windows Autopilot V2 or just a new profile type. Who cares? It's here. Agreed. Love the comedy from Dean on this one, but fantastic walkthrough basically on the basics of how we can configure it. And one of the things that I like that he paid attention to, so if you're using Autopilot today, you're probably familiar with the hardware hash. That's a unique identifier for your devices that you have to upload to Autopilot or import into Autopilot ahead of time. Dean does not do that with the new profile here. He actually goes through, and this new profile is primarily targeting the user. Now, there is something called a device corporate identifier that you can identify your specific corporate devices. It's a clever name for that, isn't it, Johan?
Yeah.
But Dean just kind of goes through the quick step-by-step walkthrough on how you can use this from a user perspective. So fantastic video here. It's short and sweet, 12 minutes. Absolutely recommend watching it. Steve Weiner as well over at Get Rubix put together what looks to be the first part of a series that he'll be putting together on autopilot device preparation. Same kind of thing. I really like the videos that Steve's been putting out recently. Johan, I think you put me on to Steve a little while ago, and he's got great content here as well. So those are really scratching the surface. Like I said, we're seeing some really great blog posts and articles come out on this stuff. So if anyone has any others that they see are standouts, please share them. But there's a ton of stuff out there. I don't want to leave anybody out. And lastly, the last thing I had on autopilot device preparation was a post from Damien. Already talking a little bit about how we can automate this. So I mentioned those corporate device identifiers. Damien put together a nice blog post here on how we can import those identifiers automatically using Graph and PowerShell. He also has a couple of blog posts here that, again, have been put together by other members of the community talking about this new version of Autopilot. So we're going to share all of these links. It's a ton of content, but obviously if you are getting into this space, very good stuff, something to pay attention to. The next thing I had was Microsoft announced a what appears to be mostly a facelift for the Intune company portal. So this is the official blog post from Microsoft on that, and you can see a screenshot of the new company portal here. From what I was reading, it looks like this will be released automatically to the Microsoft Store near the end of July, or begin to be released near the end of July into August. Right now, you can download the application and assign it. Sorry, kids in the background. You can download the application, the preview version of it, and deploy it through Intune or assign it through Intune right now. But the interesting thing about that, I don't know when the last time you assigned or created one of these apps, Johan, but the official method of assigning this application is through a line of business app in Intune. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I would have expected a store app or a Win32 app, but nope.
Well, we'll get the store app in the future at least, but I agree. Came across another post from Damien. This is just, I think, useful, again, for those of you using Autopilot. Basically putting together a logic app that once the user goes through the full Autopilot enrollment process and it finishes, you can use a logic app to automatically add the device to an Entra ID group. So there are a lot of times that we need to do that, and sometimes we can't rely or don't want to rely on the dynamic device groups in Entra. So I thought this was a really clever solution of getting this done. So I wanted to make sure I shared this as well. And a little bit on the fringes here, but this was a cool blog post that I came across. For those of you that are blocking ads in your browser, uBlock Origin, as I understand, is going to be blocked essentially from Chrome and Edge and things like that soon. I think that's how I understand it. But uBlock Origin Lite has come out, and Michael Leary, who is a local community member here in Illinois, put together a nice blog post on how to deploy that extension, uBlock Origin Lite, for Chrome through Intune and then manage it as well. I really like how he started this here, talking about the importance of actually blocking ads, even in a corporate environment, and pointed out that You don't need to take his word for it. The FBI, DoD, CISA all strongly recommend it. Even Taylor Swift thinks it's a good idea. And, so I think that's a good enough reason to do it. So I wanted to share this as well. So a lot of stuff around Autopilot this week for sure. I think that's sort of top of mind for most in the community right now. I also wanted to circle back real quick. Last week we talked about the new Windows Hardware Attestation report. And I did want to show that I actually got something going. Got some data into that report. And it was pretty easy. So what I had to do first was, if I go over to my Intune Admin Center, I'm going to go to my Windows devices, and I'm going to look at my compliance policies. You can see here I created a hardware attestation report, compliance policy rather. And in this policy, there are a few things that I set. Just edit the settings here. If we go to device health, with these three settings, BitLocker, Secure Boot, and Code Integrity set to required, I started to see data show up. Now, I haven't tested this as setting them all as not configured so that it doesn't actually flag a device as non-compliant. But by doing this, I was able to have at least one of the few devices that I assigned this to show up in the reports. So let me show you what that looks like. I need to go to device compliance, and right here, go ahead and regenerate the report to see if we got anything new out of it. And there we go. You can see last week when we took a look at this was empty, or at least I mentioned mine was empty. And we were kind of seeing the same thing for others in the community. But basically what you have is that first device that showed up. We'll get the Intune device ID, the primary user UPN, the operating system it's on, and then some other information about the hardware on the device. So you can see this particular device does not have BitLocker encryption on it at the moment. But some of the other security features are actually enabled, which is a good sign. But because my compliance policy said I needed BitLocker required, that particular device is showing as not compliant. Obviously, we can do a lot of filtering here. So if we wanted to, once we had more data in this report, if we wanted to just see the devices that don't have BitLocker at the moment, obviously we can filter on that. We can filter on code integrity and a number of other items. So I just wanted to circle back on that one a little bit. That was what finally triggered data coming in here for me, was assigning that compliance policy. So that's what I have for this week, Johan.
Awesome. You've been busy.
Trying.
All right. So I see that we have a good number of shout outs. Hello to you guys as well. Thank you for the greetings. And Andrew McCollum here commenting that it's not at all 4:30 p.m. Central Time. It's in fact 10 p.m. GMT. So over in Europe, I'm assuming. But thank you for staying up late, joining us, of course.
Oh, yeah.
So do you guys have any questions for us? Any questions at all? Be happy to answer.
All right. First one coming in right now, actually. In Intune Compliance Policies, what settings would you recommend for actions for non-compliance, such as marking non-compliant, email notification, and if to add the device to a retire list? I would say, channeling my inner Johan consultant answer here, it depends on what you want to do with those devices. basically, so let's see if we can go over here since I just set one of these up last night. We have a couple of different options in terms of what we can do. Here we go, actions for noncompliance. Once a device is marked noncompliant. So here's the default, mark device is noncompliant. You can set a schedule for when that is actually marked. But we do have these options here: send email to end user and add device to retire list. Depending on your organization and the type of device, you may want to just send some notifications, whether that is to the primary user or we want to send some notifications to other users as well. But probably not send notifications to the entire company if your device is marked non-compliant. But from my seat, I think it would be a it depends scenario. I don't know that you'd want to necessarily retire some devices, whereas if you have maybe somebody in sales or a VIP or something like that, you may not want to retire their device too quickly if they're not compliant. But somebody that's working with sensitive data or critical data, something that you really want to protect, maybe that's something that you do.
Yeah,
But
there
yeah,
could be regulatory reasons for keeping machines around, like policies and other legal fun things.
exactly. So long story short, it depends. There are a lot of options there, or at least there are a few options there. All right. So we've got basically we are finding in troubleshooting our problem systems that many of them are missing their Windows Update for Business config within their Intune managed workloads. Two questions. One, how can we find these on a bulk level? Looking one by one is not feasible or efficient. Two, once we find them, how can we fix them? The only method we have right now is to reinstall a ConfigMgr client. Also not efficient. So if I'm reading this correctly, we have co-managed devices, and you have their Intune workload switched over to, or I'm sorry, their Windows Update workload switched over to Intune. And some of them are not getting their Windows Update for Business configuration. Is that how you're reading that too, Johan?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a couple of things. Some reporting for the first question here. How can you find those that are? Actually, I think both of the resources that I share will probably answer both of these. So there are a couple of resources that we have shared a few times here, and actually, I'm just going to scroll back. I'll find these. Let's just pull them up here. First one is a blog post that I wrote a little while back on how to audit and fix Windows Update registry keys when you are co-managing devices and you've migrated that Windows Update workload over to Intune. Sad to say that doesn't work perfectly, as you obviously know, 100% of the time. And a lot of the times what happens is that we have configurations that have just been stuck in the registry. I've seen group policy corruption be a culprit for that. But this is a quick and easy way to help identify some of those devices where their registry keys did not move over. So we have a CM pivot query here that we can use to identify some of those identify those devices. But then also have a PowerShell script here that will go and change those devices, change those registry keys to 0, which allows the Windows Update for Business policies, in theory, to do what they need to do. Now, there are a couple of other blog posts a very deep dive blog post by Ben Whitmore over on the Patch My PC blog. So there are obviously 100 different settings, a lot. There are a lot of different settings you can set for Windows Update and Windows Update for Business. And you get into these situations where they're conflicting with each other, or the old policies are corrupted. We have a lot of different issues that we run into, obviously. And Ben did an incredible deep dive blog post on some of the things that can go wrong with that. So I will share both of these posts, and I hope that that will help you identify some of those problem issues, or problem devices, rather. All right, just copy these links off. All right. We've got another question over here on YouTube. I think this one will be for you, Johan. In PSD customsetting.ini, how do I build an OU location string for domain join based on gateways for different branches?
So we have not yet implemented the default gateway logic, as far as I remember. So if you wanted to do that right now, you just have to run a custom PowerShell script that sets that variable. Basically have an array of the subnets that you're looking for, and do a match depending on what gateway you end up having, and then set the variable. Because once that variable is set by the script, the sequence will happily use it. So I don't think you can do it today through the ini file. But if you post it as an issue on the site, on the GitHub site, we will address it as we go through these different feature requests that are coming in. We are planning on pushing a fairly significant release Friday on this platform, something we've been working on for 4 or 5 weeks. That feature is not part of that, but we have done a lot of changes around the wizard that I think you guys will like.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a question from Matt over on YouTube. To issue a bulk restart or sync via Intune, it will accept 100 devices only. You also have to select them manually. Really is a pain, isn't it? Is there a way to target all devices? And as a matter of fact, there is. A little bit of PowerShell. Or as Johan would say, a healthy dose of PowerShell. I think I've heard you say that before.
Yeah, it's my go-to phrase.
I love it. So we have a PowerShell script up here on our deployment research GitHub repository. Basically connect to Graph, and for a sync at least, I know you asked about a restart or a sync, but you could, in theory, change this to do a restart. For a sync, we issue this command. So in this case, what we're doing is we are connecting a graph here. We are getting all devices, and we're filtering on any device that is a Windows device. So operating system, as you can see, Windows. Verifying the amount of devices that we retrieved, and then looping through all of those devices and sending that sync request. This is the way we both do it. Even if we're just doing a handful of devices these days, pretty much just have this up and go through that. You can also see some other examples down at the bottom for how you can filter. So if you want to filter on devices that just have a wildcard in their name, so PC in this example, you can run this on a specific, just one specific device. Or you can get all of the devices where a specific user is the primary user. So I hope that helps, Matt. All right. Gary is asking over on Twitter, when I'm in Intune and I'm looking at software install status for device install status, I see the same device show up several times, like one for the device and again for each user who has logged in. Is there a way to clean this up?
Not that I've seen.
Same.
I think that's a feature of the platform, the way it reports that data.
Mm-hmm. I think there's been some reports in the past where they've cleaned up some of that, where they being Microsoft, where they've adjusted the reports, but it's been solely based on what they put out for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, Gary. No immediate fix for that one that we know of.
We actually saw one this week where an application was installed on a device, and it had been installed on every device in the group that it was assigned to, but one single device, it wasn't showing status at all. And it had been installed there for months. So for whatever that story's worth, there you have it. I've got another question over here on YouTube. Do you have any suggestions of migrating firewall rules to Intune? The Microsoft tool is outdated and does not work.
No, I haven't done any automated migration of firewall rules. I'm assuming it's possible to do it through Graph in one way or another, but I just haven't done it. I've been recreating them, the one I've been needing.
Yeah. I did see it's somewhat related. If you are having to go through and recreate them, I saw a post on Reddit just yesterday in the Intune subreddit. Lord, that is a link. One moment.
Do you ever sleep?
No.
All right.
So basically, a post on thoughts on how they do. Basically, asking, "Hey, we're going to be doing firewalls in Intune. Do you go through and configure one gigantic policy, an individual policy per each rule, or broken down to required groups?" And like so many things that we see in this community, the answers were, we do this at our organization and it works for a lot of people. We have a company-wide large policy, and then there are specific firewall rules that we have to set. Create another policy for those and assign them to a group. So just some interesting conversation going on over there.
All right.
All right. So we've got over on YouTube, in our co-managed environment, we have found when creating groups for deployment that we're more successful when deploying to users versus device. Verified users are primary user. Device things do not get delivered, whereas user deployments do. Basically, is there a simple answer as to why this is?
So why users are faster to deploy like applications to, or does it say what type of?
No, it just says deployments. Yeah, good question, though. I mean, it would definitely depend, right? If you're assigning certain profiles or policies.
But for example, the IB agent, that there are triggers when you log on to the device.
Mm-hmm.
So that one could of course, if you use get a device and log in, then it will trigger whatever policy that was configured for it.
Well, there was a follow-up: applications, policies, basically everything.
I haven't done much of benchmarking in how quickly they get deployed, like devices versus users.
Mm-hmm.
But even device deployment, they usually don't take that long once the policy has been downloaded and triggered.
One thing, and at the risk of sounding obvious, but just double check that the workloads for like your applications or your configurations are actually set to pilot for those devices. Definitely, I've seen where configuration profiles just aren't going to come down in a co-management scenario if you don't have that workload moved over. So just something, a simple thing to double check.
Yeah, or if it's a ConfigMgr profile not coming down, that has been configured to be allowed to do it, even if the workload has been moved over.
Yeah. All
But
right.
it's a valid point. Intune, unlike ConfigMgr, is not as instant in terms of delivering a policy or an application. Does not really have the equivalent of a fast channel
Mhm.
that you can leverage. So it's just slower by nature. It's a shared service, shared by millions and millions of devices. Whereas a ConfigMgr environment is quite likely not to be millions and millions of devices.
Yeah.
And you can also throw more hardware at it if you have your own environment. You can't throw more hardware at Intune. So, yeah.
Oh, great point. All right. Jamie's asking, have you created any ARM reference WIM files yet using MDT or PSD?
No, only thin one. I'm assuming the question is regarding thick images. I have not tried that yet. I only have the default Vim that I was trying to deploy when I got the hardware from both Lenovo and HP that I've been testing with, plus the Surface I had since earlier, the Microsoft one that has ARM.
All right. So Amir's got a question around feature update reporting. Speaking of users versus devices, we deploy Windows 11 through Windows feature updates profiles to users, and then eventually their devices will show up in our Windows Update for Business report. There's some users' devices that are missing from the report. Is there any way to troubleshoot that? Also, is being in compliance a requirement for the feature update to apply? So the there was just an update to Windows Update for Business reports that should show missing devices. Let's see where that blog post is. Right here. Maybe start here, Amir, to see if this helps identify those devices in your Windows Update for Business reports. That's the first thing that I'm thinking of. Anything off the top of your head, Johan?
No, same.
Yeah, okay. And is being in compliance a requirement for the feature update to apply? I'm not sure. I mean, mostly the way that I'm deploying these or managing these devices are with either very simple compliance policies or none at all.
I have not seen a non-compliance setting blocking an update to apply,
Yeah,
because that could be the compliance.
that's true. Yeah, great point. Go through that update and finally you are in compliance.
Yeah. And that would kind of surprise me if that was a blocker.
Yeah. I'm going to make sure to copy this link off too. All right. Any other questions? We do have a bit of time here still.
23 minutes. Happy Wednesday.
Yes, it is.
This afternoon was particularly great. I was booked for a meeting between 1 and 3, and I just joined it shortly after 1, and it told us that, oh, we'll have to postpone this. I'm like, yes.
Oof. That's one of the world's greatest feelings.
Yeah, that was nice.
2-hour meeting postponed or even canceled. Oof. You don't get
I
those all
wasn't,
the time.
no, we still have to do the work, but I'm like, all right. I appreciate the break.
Definitely.
Allowed me to catch up on a few things that I wanted to catch up on, so very happy.
Well, sometimes it even allows you to actually do the work that you were there to discuss.
That too. Oh, nice. I saw a comment here on YouTube. Booked a ticket for MMS in Florida this October. Sounds good. We'll see you there.
Awesome.
Both of us, as the rumor goes.
That's the hope.
That's the hope.
We'll
Did
see.
you get your final confirmation yet, Andrew?
No.
Not yet? All right. No.
Still waiting. But that's all right. What, going to, when we were at Miami last year, it was the first time I went to the fall MMS conference, and man, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I was surprised how good it was. I expected, like, all right, this must be a smaller conference, etc., but it turns out to be downright fantastic. So,
Yeah.
definitely go on again.
Speaking of conferences, our friend Frank Lesniak shared with me yesterday, there are a couple of other small conferences in the area that I didn't even realize that they existed. So I'm going to share them if you don't mind.
So go ahead.
First one was called PowerShell and SQL on the River in Chattanooga. 300 tickets for this conference. It's a couple of days. So for anybody in that area or close to that area, I thought that was pretty interesting. And there was another one that he shared with me, Blue Team Con in Chicago in September. Again, looked like a small conference, just a few days. But yeah, like I said, I had not even heard of these, and they looked pretty interesting. I don't know that I'll be able to get to either of them, but they looked interesting, so I thought I'd spread the word.
All right, thank you, sir. I had to look up where Chattanooga was, but it was actually not that bad of a flight from Chicago.
No, not at all.
It's not exactly around the corner, but it was not a 4-hour flight either.
Right. Well, see, I don't know. You've been in the Midwest long enough now, Johan, that Chattanooga should pretty much be around the corner for a drive.
No. Still a bit too far.
Yeah. And Gary mentioned as well OSD Day at Twin Cities Systems Management User Group in the Twin Cities this July. Lots of great speakers there.
Yeah, I was so bummed not to be able to make this one this year, but there are plenty of great speakers, as Gary mentioned. So, yeah, highly recommend that one.
Yeah. Is there an announcement for that one somewhere?
You can probably find one.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I was up with that group for the first time back in March, and what a fantastic group to speak with and network with. Um, just all around, I have nothing but good things to say about that group.
I don't see any formal registration for that one yet.
Okay.
At least not on their regular website or upcoming meetings.
Well, we can keep an eye out, and when one of us comes across that, or Gary, if you want to send it over our way when that comes up, be happy to share it.
Yeah, fair and square.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Gary said thanks. We like you too. That warms my heart. Um, all right. Jamie was asking, do you have a script to copy a task sequence to pre-cache along with copying all options, conditions, skew match, etc.? We're moving driver. We're moving driver win packages. I did see an old one, but it didn't do the conditions for each step.
I have an example where I added a condition. I can share that one. I find my screen in this little area. Let's see. If I add this one, that looks like my screen. It's funny, we was actually having a Twitter conversation around this either this morning or late last night, depending on how you look at it. But it is fully possible to create sequences in ConfigMgr through nothing but PowerShell. You don't have to fiddle around with XML files and all that stuff. But this was one that was copying packages over from another sequence, creating a new one. But I was also having an example where we downright created one from scratch and added in a gazillion of driver packages in it. I got tired of adding them one by one because, as you can see, I have more than a few. And in this here, I can swear I added a condition to it. As to where I set that condition, however, that's another story. Yeah, I was checking for variable. So this was my condition. So basically, I had a variable that was never supposed to be true. So I had a conditions that never true should be true. It says here after true, I think. Yeah, it has to be true. And it never will be. So that group would never kick in. So you can definitely do that. And when you create your sequence group, you can say that you want to use that condition. So it should be doable to script. And otherwise you can also export and import sequences if you just want to do a copy of them. That's fairly quickly. But if you want to manipulate them through PowerShell, this is what I would recommend doing rather than messing around with XML files. It can get pretty intense. So, but I'll make a note of this link and share it with the others. And for those that are new to our office hours, these links, we share them up on our academy. We have them here. And speaking of the academy, this is some stuff here that we are working on that we can share some more details about in the upcoming weeks. getting close. We'll see. But the one I wanted to share also was this one here, where we have our YouTube channel. For each of these live videos, we do share the links underneath here from each of the sessions. So it usually takes us a day or two to add them in, but that will be here. Something to do for the evening or morning. So yeah, there we are.
Indeed. Speaking of that, real quick, because I see we have a couple of other questions, I totally forgot to share another community update. Gary updated the community edition of the Safeguard Hold database.
Oh yeah, went from 115 to 118, something like that.
Yes. And it made me laugh too. I just clicked on the JSON file that has all of the. If you want to share my screen, Johan, you can.
Yes, sir. I will. And I
I
shall.
clicked on. Thank you. Clicked on the JSON file that has all the safeguard holds, and I like that even things like Red Dead Redemption prevents certain feature updates from moving forward.
That'll be all right. I did not know that.
Yeah. So if you are playing Red Dead Redemption 2 and you're trying to go from 20H1 to 21H1, now you know why you couldn't.
That was a strange safeguard hole, but all right.
Yeah.
The
But thank you,
Intel
Gary.
one, yeah, thank you. The Intel driver one, I was not too surprised of, but the game, all right. It's a
Yeah.
first.
Mm-hmm. No, it looked like you said, a couple of updates yesterday. Gary, sometimes I wonder if Gary ever sleeps too.
I doubt it.
All right, so I wanted to make sure I called that out. I had it ready to go and forgot to add it to my list earlier.
How
So
could
thank you, Gary. I know. Every once in a while, I forget. Anyways, back to the questions that we had here. So Amir is asking, what's a good indicator that we can use in our scripts to identify an exit if a device is in the middle of imaging or running an MDT task sequence? Any running process name or TS variable to look for? The concern is the time between reboots and before the TS kicking in again. There was a follow-up comment too. Is it enough to just be able to connect to the task sequence environment if it exists? The task sequence is running.
I mean, it always takes a little bit for it to start after a reboot, but you can definitely search for the presence of the task sequence cache folder, stuff like that, because if the sequence is not done, that one will still be there. And you will also find the policies and other things available. So you can look for those files, and that will tell you whether the sequence was not done. But yeah, once that kicks in again, you can ask for things. That's the only thing that I can think of at the moment. Look for the underscore SMS TS task sequence folder on the C drive. And sometimes not the C drive, but often the C drive. There is some weird logic there where it will find the largest drive with free disk space and try to put it on that one. I've seen that happen.
Looks like he's going to give that a shot.
All right. Anything else? Still have 9 more minutes.
Jamie had a couple of follow-ups here on that task sequence question. I'm not sure if you actually answered those as part of your response.
Well, I tried, but
Sometimes that's
okay. I see the follow up here. Okay, so the follow up clarification was having a normal deployment sequence and basically transfer that one into a pre-caching one with the same type of conditions for each step. I have been quite brutal there in my pre-caching sequences. The example that I showed earlier here, or I create a new pre-caching from another one, I simply take all of it. I don't care what. Maybe I should share my screen also. Forgot that I shared yours. It's like, what does it not change?
there's yours.
Yeah. So basically, what the approach I had was that every single. Let's see what I have. This one. Here. Every single reference a sequence had, I made sure those packages were available in the pre-caching sequence. And the way I deployed my pre-caching sequences is that I download everything beforehand. So I have here one I was testing for a Windows 11 22H1. And if I go to deployment there, I didn't have one for that one. Let's see if I have any. This one I have a deployment for. And if I check the distribution point settings on this one, this is the key here to download everything before starting. Because that forces us to take every single reference and stack it into the ConfigMgr client cache. And in this particular case, it also forces to use the branch cache, which is brilliant. That's a bonus. But I mean, sure, you can have pre-caching sequences with conditions on them. But I was lazy and just took everything and make sure the content was out there. The rare exception has been when we do in-place upgrades, where we use the script from Morris Daily to do a pre-cache of only the driver package that the machine actually needs, because we do it in two phases. We pre-cache the OS image and the driver package it needs first and validate the system, and then once everything has been validated, then we do the upgrade. But since the upgrade now, since the content is already on the hard drive at that point, the upgrade goes very, very quick as it possibly can go. So that would be the exception of pre-caching everything. When I only pre-cache for one device. Yeah, there was follow-up clarification. We have a bunch of driver models and don't want to pre-cache all of them. Yeah, then you would have to have some sort of condition or multiple sequences. That you push out different sequences to different departments or different business units, sites, countries, planets. I don't know.
Planets. Hey.
Well, eventually March will have a config manager server on it. I'm sure of it.
That's right.
Mars. The planet Mars, not the month. Long week, huh?
It's Wednesday.
What I should have done when I got the break today, I should have taken a nap. That would have wise man would have done that.
Yeah. Next week. Now you know when that happens again.
Yeah.
So we got a tricky one here. It sounds like over on YouTube, we are targeting apps to an AD group using a direct rule collection. No updates. The available apps show up instantly in Software Center. Required apps sometimes get delayed by weeks, as if the ConfigMgr client wouldn't recognize the user's AD group membership change.
It's nothing I have seen taking weeks to populate a collection that is group based. Possibly try a more aggressive full scan than because most of those will be Delta only.
Mm-hmm.
Or some sort of health check script running that will validate. This group in AD has 55 machines. This collection has 47. Probably not right. Force a full collection evaluation. So that you can do through PowerShell.
Is it possible that something could be going wrong with group discovery? Something to take a look at?
I don't know, because if it was misconfigured, it wouldn't happen at all.
True.
Not
Yeah.
after 2 weeks. So now I would need some more information about that, but call EVA log file should give some clues.
I do like the follow-up comment. I'll accept if it's DNS.
Or DNS.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, isn't it always?
as always it's. All right, then. I don't see any more questions.
No, sir, I do not either.
Well, then, as always, thank you so much for joining, guys, and we hope to see you next week sometime. Have a good one.
Thanks. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.